From the patio at Tootsie's in Nashville, here is our hockey insider, Darren Dreger. Dregs, what did you think of the return that Kevin Cheveldayoff got for Pierre-Luc Dubois? And why did Pierre-Luc Dubois ultimately end up in Los Angeles rather than what we thought was his preferred destination, Montreal?
Well, you know what, Jay, it's been a developing story for the last number of days, I would say. I mean, for so long we talked about the sweepstakes of Pierre-Luc Dubois and the Winnipeg Jets really being a two-horse race. Now, I'm sure there were other teams that kicked tires. Ultimately, it came down to the Los Angeles Kings and the Montreal Canadiens. But on the weekend, Pat Brisson, who represents Pierre-Luc Dubois, told the Montreal Canadiens and the Winnipeg Jets that his client was focused on the Los Angeles Kings. Okay, well, now you got to sort some stuff out, including the mammoth return and the 3 players in the draft pick that the Jets ended up getting from the LA Kings. And then on top of that, of course, Winnipeg Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff and his management group had to then wrestle with the mega 8-year extension that ultimately they ended up trading to the Los Angeles Kings. So it was a very exhaustive and a complicated process, really, from beginning to end. But Winnipeg Jets fans should be thrilled with the return.
And it seems like they are, Dregs. For Cheveldayoff, though, is there any update on Mark Scheifele or maybe Connor Hellebuyck?
Well, we know that the Jets GM is going to be incredibly busy in the days moving forward here. It's been relatively quiet, I would say, around Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele. Obviously, that can change with a phone call. One thing we know is that when you've got good players available like Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck, they are going to draw some attention. But I think Winnipeg Jets fans are going to have to brace themselves. Again, if we look back at the return they got for Pierre-Luc Dubois, the fit that he was, almost a perfect fit for the Los Angeles Kings, I don't think that it's fair to expect that Cheveldayoff is going to be able to get a similar return for Hellebuyck or for Connor Scheifele, and nor is he in a big rush to move either player. But he's listening, he's having conversations, and he's trying to do business in a number of different areas, not just the pieces that have acknowledged that they won't re-sign in Winnipeg.
Interesting. Now, we heard from Pierre Dorion on Alex DeBrincat. Dregs, what's the market like for Alex DeBrincat right now?
Yeah, it's not as strong as Pierre Dorion would like it to be, and that's disappointing when you consider what Alex DeBrincat can provide any team, but he's an expensive proposition. There have been some rumors out there swirling around the Detroit Red Wings expressing some interest. I believe that to be true, and again, things can change very quickly, but I think the interest in DeBrincat from Detroit's standpoint is lukewarm, unless it's a sweetheart deal that makes perfect sense for Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings. I don't think that there's interest from the Dallas Stars, another team that was rumored to be a potentially good fit for Alex DeBrincat. I mean, like so many teams, Jay, the Dallas Stars are right up against the cap, so I don't think that that's a scenario that's going to unfold. And Dorion needs to get fair value. He'd love to get a first-round pick, and he's even willing to drift into next year, into 2024, for that first-round pick. So it's going to be interesting here to watch what the return ends up being for DeBrincat and the Ottawa Senators.
And then for the Leafs, Brad Treliving said on Tuesday he thinks that they can get Willie Nylander and Auston Matthews both under contract extensions. Is there any other update on that front?
Well, no, but we know that it's going to be heavy lifting, and that means it's also going to be complicated. Surprising for any general manager who has to wrestle with the salary cap. There are so many different complexities. Here's what we know, Jay, and here's what brings it back to Nashville. We know that Treliving has had a face-to-face conversation with Judd Moldaver, who represents Auston Matthews. That went well. I believe, because I'm told, that Auston Matthews ultimately is going to sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It just might not be in the days leading up to Saturday, which is July 1st. As far as Matthews is concerned, there's no ultimate timeline here. We know his no-move clause kicks in on July 1st, but that kind of more or less is a formality. William Nylander is a little bit different. Again, there was communication. There's been a meeting between Louis Gross, who represents Nylander, with Brad Treliving of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't believe that they've gotten into the heavy lifting of this potential extension to this point. What if that number is too significant? As Pierre LeBrun talked about on Monday, you know, Brad Treliving is covering all bases here. He's doing his due diligence. That means having conversations about clubs who may have interest in William Nylander. So this is to be determined for the Toronto Maple Leafs, for William Nylander, less so for Auston Matthews.
And Dregs, we told everyone about Tyler Toffoli on his way out of Calgary, heading to New Jersey. We said that earlier in the show. We're going to talk to Craig Button on the rooftop of Tootsie's a little later in the show about that trade. curious how you think Craig Conroy did in his very first deal as Flames GM.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a workload, right? In Tyler Toffoli's case, this one makes sense that Conroy jumped as early as he did because Tyler Toffoli legitimately asked for a trade. Now, there are some other pieces that we've talked about and speculated on. I think of Michael Bachman. I think of Lindholm. I think of Noah Hannafin. I mean, those are all attractive commodities, but they're also under contract with the Calgary Flames, and, you know, there's a little bit less pressure in that regard. So Craig Conroy makes a deal that makes sense to the Calgary Flames, and now let's watch to see what Tom Fitzgerald and the New Jersey Devils might do with Tyler Toffoli. My belief is that Toffoli wanted to go to an organization. He knows that it's likely going to be his last NHL contract, so it has to be a family fit. But Fitzgerald and the New Jersey Devils are going to take their time before weighing into extension negotiations with the Toffoli camp.
Dregs, thanks so much for this. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.